Hello everyone, and welcome back to Old Coins News. Today we're going to explore some fascinating Kennedy half-dollar coins that every coin collector should know about. These coins may look ordinary at first glance, but their history, mint marks, condition, varieties, and unusual features can make them very interesting to collectors. So stay with us until the end. Take a close look at your own coins, and you might discover something special. So, let's get started. The 1996p Kennedy half-dollar is a fascinating United States coin that carries both historical significance and collector interest. This coin has a face value of 50 cents, or 1/2 of a US dollar, and it was struck at the Philadelphia Mint in 1996. The P mint mark identifies Philadelphia as a minting facility. The 1996p issue is part of the long-running Kennedy half-dollar series, which began in 1964 following the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. By 1996, the Kennedy half-dollar had already been in production for more than 3 decades, and its design had become one of the most recognizable designs in modern American coinage. According to PCGS, 24,442,000 examples of the 1996p regular strike Kennedy half-dollar were produced. On the obverse of the 1996p Kennedy half-dollar is a famous left-facing portrait of President John F. Kennedy. The portrait was designed by Gilroy Roberts, who served as chief engraver of the United States Mint. Around Kennedy's portrait are several important inscriptions. The word liberty appears prominently along the upper portion of the coin, while in God we trust is divided around Kennedy's portrait. The date 1996 appears near the bottom. The Philadelphia P mint mark is located beneath Kennedy's neck, near the lower portion of the portrait. When examining a 1996p coin, collectors should carefully inspect this area to confirm that the mint mark is actually a P. The inscriptions and portrait are not simply decorative elements. They are important identifying features that help determine exactly which Kennedy half-dollar collector has. The reverse of the coin features the presidential seal-inspired design used on Kennedy half-dollars. At the center is a heraldic eagle holding a bundle of arrows in its talons, symbolizing military strength and defense. The eagle also holds an olive branch, representing peace. Surrounding the eagle is a circle of stars, creating a dramatic and highly detailed composition. The inscriptions United States of America and half-dollar identify the issuing nation and denomination. The phrase E pluribus unum appears above the eagle. This Latin phrase means out of many, one, and it has long been associated with the United States and the idea of unity among the states. The reverse was designed by Frank Gasparro, another important United States mint engraver. One of the most important things to understand about the 1996p Kennedy half-dollar is its composition. This is not a 90% silver Kennedy half-dollar. The regular 1996p circulation strike is a copper-nickel clad coin. PCGS describes the metal as 75% copper and 25% nickel over a pure copper center. Other references report the overall metal composition as approximately 91.67% copper and 8.33% nickel when the entire clad structure is considered. The coin weighs approximately 11.3 to 11.34 grams and has a diameter of about 30.6 millimeters. Its edge is reeded with approximately 150 reeds. The fact that the 1996p is clad is extremely important when determining its value. Some collectors see the words 1996 and Kennedy half-dollar and immediately assume that the coin contains valuable silver. That assumption is incorrect for the normal 1996p business strike coin. Silver Kennedy half-dollars were produced in earlier years, and special silver versions were also made for collectors in 1996. But the ordinary 1996p Philadelphia issue is copper-nickel clad. Therefore, its value normally comes from its condition, grade, strike quality, errors or varieties, and collector demand rather than from silver content. The mintage of 24,442,000 pieces makes the 1996p Kennedy half-dollar a relatively available modern Kennedy half-dollar, rather than an extremely rare coin in ordinary circulated condition. This is an important distinction for collectors. A coin can be old, interesting, and collectible without being extremely rare. The 1996p is more than 30 years old now, but millions were produced. PCGS characterizes a coin as fairly common in circulated grades through approximately MS-66, while higher grade examples become significantly more difficult to find. This is where condition becomes particularly important. A worn 1996p Kennedy half dollar generally does not command a dramatic premium simply because of its date. In fact, modern Kennedy half dollars are often found with relatively low values in ordinary condition. However, an example with exceptional preservation can be much more interesting. Collectors examine coins for original mint luster, sharp details, clean surfaces, attractive eye appeal, and the absence of distracting contact marks. Because half dollars are relatively large coins, even small marks can be easy to see. A coin that was stored carefully after leaving the mint can therefore be substantially more desirable than an example that circulated heavily. The grading system is another major part of understanding this coin. Circulated coins can receive grades such as good, very good, fine, very fine, extremely fine, and about uncirculated. Once a coin reaches mint state, grades such as MS60, MS61, MS62, MS63, MS64, MS65, MS66, MS67, and MS68 become increasingly important. The higher the grade, the more demanding the standards become. A coin graded MS60 is technically uncirculated, but it can still have numerous marks or other imperfections. An MS67 example is dramatically more impressive because it must have excellent preservation and strong overall eye appeal. The 1996p is particularly interesting in the upper mint state grades. PCGS notes that MS67 examples are scarce and that MS68 examples are very scarce, with only a relatively small number of coins potentially surviving that exceptional level. PCGS also states that examples in grade higher than MS68 are very uncommon. This is an important lesson for anyone searching through older collections, rolls, inherited coins, or bags of Kennedy half dollars. Do not judge a coin only by its date. The 1972D Kennedy half dollar is an important coin in the long-running Kennedy half dollar series of the United States. It carries a face value of 50 cents, or 1/2 of a dollar, and was struck at the Denver Mint, which is identified by the D mint mark on the obverse. The Kennedy half dollar series began in 1964 as a tribute to President John F. Kennedy following his assassination in November 1963. By 1972, the design had already become one of the most recognizable presidential coin designs in American history. The 1972D issue belongs to the modern clad era of the series, meaning that the regular circulation version is not a 90% silver coin. Instead, it has a copper nickel outer layer bonded to a copper core. This makes the 1972D especially interesting because it sits within an important transition period in American coinage, when the United States Mint had already moved away from silver for regular Kennedy half dollars. The obverse of the 1972D Kennedy half dollar features a famous portrait of President John F. Kennedy facing left. This portrait was created by Gilroy Roberts, who was the chief engraver of the United States Mint. Kennedy's portrait occupies most of the central area of the coin, while the inscriptions surround the design. The word Liberty appears across the upper portion of the coin, and the national motto, "In God We Trust," is positioned around the lower portions of the portrait. The date 1972 appears at the bottom. Beneath Kennedy's neck is a small D mint mark, indicating that the coin was produced at the Denver Mint. When examining a 1972D Kennedy half dollar, the mint mark is one of the first details a collector should confirm because it distinguishes this coin from the Philadelphia issue of the same year. The reverse of the 1972D Kennedy half dollar features the presidential seal-inspired design that has remained associated with the series. At the center is a heraldic eagle holding a bundle of arrows in its right talon and an olive branch in its left. The arrows represent military strength and defense, while the olive branch symbolizes peace. Above the eagle is the motto E pluribus unum, a Latin phrase commonly translated as out of many, one. Surrounding the eagle is a circle of stars representing the states of the United States. Around the outer rim are the inscriptions United States of America and half dollar. The reverse design was created by Frank Gasparro, another highly influential engraver who later became chief engraver of the United States Mint. One of the most important facts about the 1972D Kennedy half dollar is its composition. Regular 1972D examples are copper nickel clad rather than the 90% silver composition used on Kennedy half dollars from 1964. The clad structure consists of copper nickel outer layers bonded to a copper center. The coin has a diameter of approximately 30.6 millimeters and weighs approximately 11.3 grams. It has a reeded edge, which means that numerous narrow grooves run around the edge of the coin. These physical characteristics help distinguish the Kennedy half dollar from other U.S. denominations and are also useful when checking a coin for authenticity. The transition from silver to clad coinage is an important part of the history of the 1972 D Kennedy half dollar. The first Kennedy half dollars issued in 1964 were made from 90% silver. In 1965, the composition was changed to a 40% silver-clad alloy, which remained in use for certain Kennedy half dollars through 1970. Beginning in 1971, regular Kennedy half dollars were made with copper-nickel-clad construction. Therefore, the 1972 D is part of the first few years of the regular copper-nickel-clad Kennedy half dollar era. This distinction is extremely important for collectors because a coin should not automatically be valued according to the silver content of earlier Kennedy half dollars. The Denver Mint played an important role in producing the 1972 D Kennedy half dollar. Denver has been one of the principal United States mint facilities for circulating coin production for generations. Coins made at Denver generally carry the D Mint mark. During the early 1970s, the Mint was producing enormous quantities of circulating coins to satisfy the needs of the American economy. Kennedy half dollars were not used as frequently in everyday transactions as quarters, dimes, and pennies, but they were still produced in significant numbers. Many examples were saved by banks, collectors, families, and businesses, which means that surviving examples can be found in a wide range of conditions. The 1972 D Kennedy half dollar is particularly interesting because there are varieties and mint-made characteristics associated with this year that collectors pay close attention to. One of the best-known varieties from the 1972 Kennedy half dollar series is the 1972 D No FG variety. The initials FG normally appear on the reverse near the bottom right side of the design and represent Frank Gasparo, the reverse designer. On certain 1972 D Kennedy half dollars, the initials were weakly struck or completely missing because of dye preparation and polishing. Coins displaying the recognized No FG characteristic can attract collector attention and may be worth considerably more than an ordinary example, depending on authenticity, grade, and market demand. The 1972 D No FG variety is an excellent example of why collectors should not simply look at the date and mint mark. Two coins can both say 1972 D but have very different collecting interest. One may be an ordinary clad Kennedy half dollar, while another may possess a recognized variety that collectors actively search for. However, it is important to understand that not every Kennedy half dollar missing visible FG initials is automatically the valuable variety. Where? Weak. Coins. The 1983 D Kennedy half dollar is an interesting and historically important United States 50-cent coin from the modern era of American coinage. This coin carries a face value of 50 cents, or 1/2 of a U.S. dollar, and it was produced at the Denver Mint, identified by the small D Mint mark located beneath President John F. Kennedy's neck on the obverse. The 1983 D is part of the Kennedy half dollar series that began in 1964 as a national tribute to President John F. Kennedy. By 1983, the Kennedy half dollar had already been circulating for nearly 2 decades, and its design had become one of the most recognizable presidential designs on United States coinage. The 1983 D is especially interesting to collectors because it belongs to a period when regular Kennedy half dollars were made from copper-nickel-clad material rather than the silver compositions used on many early examples. According to PCGS and NGC, the Denver Mint produced 32,472,244 examples of the 1983 D Kennedy half dollar. The obverse of the 1983 D Kennedy half dollar features the left-facing portrait of President John F. Kennedy. The portrait was designed by Gilroy Roberts, who served as chief engraver of the United States Mint. Around the portrait are several important inscriptions that help identify the coin. The word liberty appears along the upper portion of the coin, while in God We Trust is positioned around Kennedy's portrait. The date 1983 appears near the bottom, and the small D mint mark is located beneath Kennedy's neck. When examining one of these coins, the mint mark should be one of the first things you check because it confirms that the coin was produced at Denver rather than Philadelphia or San Francisco. The obverse is not merely a portrait. It represents a historical reason the entire Kennedy half dollar series exists. The Kennedy half dollar was introduced very quickly after President Kennedy's death in November 1963. The United States Mint moved rapidly to create a coin honoring the late president, and the first Kennedy half dollars were released in 1964. The design became a permanent part of American coinage. Gilroy Roberts created the obverse portrait, while Frank Gasparro created the reverse design. This collaboration produced one of the most recognizable modern American coins. Even decades later, the 1983 D continues to carry the same basic portrait and reverse design introduced with the original series. The reverse of the 1983 D Kennedy half dollar is equally impressive. It features a heraldic eagle holding a bundle of arrows in one talon and an olive branch in the other. The arrows traditionally represent military strength and defense, while the olive branch represents peace. Behind and around the eagle is a circle of stars. Above the eagle is the inscription E pluribus unum, a Latin phrase commonly translated as out of many, one. Around the outside of the reverse are the words United States of America and half dollar. The reverse design was created by Frank Gasparro and is based on the presidential seal. Because the design contains many small details, the reverse is an important area for collectors when evaluating strike quality, surface preservation, and possible varieties. The 1983 D Kennedy half dollar is a clad coin rather than a regular silver Kennedy half dollar. NGC lists its composition as copper-nickel clad copper, while PCGS described the outer material as 75% copper and 25% nickel over a pure copper center. The coin has a diameter of approximately 30.6 millimeters and weighs approximately 11.3 grams. Its edge is reeded with approximately 150 reeds. This composition is important because collectors sometimes assume that every Kennedy half dollar is made from silver. That is not correct. The 1983 D regular strike coin is part of the copper-nickel clad era. To understand the 1983 D properly, it is useful to understand the history of Kennedy half dollar compositions. The first Kennedy half dollar in 1964 was struck in 90% silver. Beginning in 1965, the regular Kennedy half dollar changed to a 40% silver-clad composition. That silver-clad composition continued for several years, but by 1971 the regular circulation Kennedy half dollar had changed again to copper-nickel clad construction. Therefore, the 1983 D is not a silver coin in the traditional bullion sense. Its potential collector value is primarily connected with condition, varieties, errors, and collector demand rather than silver content. The 1983 D has a substantial mintage of 32,472,244 coins. That number means the date and mint mark by themselves do not make every 1983 D extremely rare. However, mintage is only one part of the story. What makes the 1983 D particularly interesting is the availability of high-quality surviving examples. PCGS notes that the Mint did not produce its regular annual uncirculated coin set in 1982 and 1983, which changed the way collectors obtained uncirculated Kennedy half dollars during this period. Instead, collectors had to find these coins through other channels, including banks, dealers, and special souvenir sets. The absence of the regular Mint set in 1983 is an important point for collectors. A coin can have a large mintage but still be difficult to find in exceptional condition. Many coins that entered circulation received scratches, contact marks, fingerprints, or other damage. Coins preserved immediately after production can survive in much better condition. This creates what collectors call conditional rarity. The 1983 D is therefore a good example of why a coin does not have to have a tiny original mintage to become valuable in a very high grade. Condition is one of the most important factors when determining the value of a 1983 D Kennedy half dollar. A heavily circulated coin may show wear on Kennedy's hair, cheek, jaw, neck, and the surrounding fields. The reverse may show wear on the eagle, shield, stars, arrows, and olive branch. An uncirculated coin, by contrast, retains its original mint state characteristics and should not show the same type of circulation wear. However, even an uncirculated coin can have contact marks from other coins or handling during production and transportation. Professional grading becomes especially important for high-grade 1983 D Kennedy half dollars. Appeal.